Absolutely. Here's a 1,000-word detailed explanation of Part 1 of your HFY story, When Humanity Vanished in Silence. The Council never saw the consequences coming. Part I. The Vanishing Full Explanation, minus 1,000 words. The first part of the story sets the stage for the grand mystery of humanity's disappearance and how it shakes the very foundations of a galaxy that once depended on them. It unfolds like a historical recount told from the collective perspective of the Galactic Council, an ancient interstellar assembly that once governed countless species. For centuries, humanity had been one of the most influential members of this galactic community. They were not the oldest, nor the strongest, nor the most technologically advanced, but they were different. Humanity's defining trait wasn't physical strength, but adaptability. Where other species rigidly followed tradition or biological instinct, humans improvised. They took chaos and made art out of it. They turned disaster into opportunity. This unique creativity made them indispensable within the Galactic Council. They were explorers, diplomats, engineers, and peacemakers. When the Arkan Empire fell into civil war, it was human mediators who restored peace. When the Twaran colonies faced a catastrophic energy collapse, it was human scientists who saved them with a new reactor design. Humanity's fingerprints were everywhere, from the architecture of galactic cities to the laws that governed trade routes. And then, one day, without any warning, they were gone. The disappearance happened instantaneously. Across thousands of colonies and hundreds of systems, the same event occurred. People vanished. Entire populations, billions of humans, simply ceased to exist. Ships drifted without crews. Communications ended mid-sentence. Mining operations, cities, orbital habitats, and research stations all remained perfectly intact. But devoid of life, the shock rippled through the galaxy like a psychic tremor. The first response from the Council was disbelief. Perhaps it was a massive communications failure, or a viral AI revolt, or even some cosmic disaster. Fleets were dispatched to investigate. Yet every team that entered a human world reported the same impossible truth. Nothing had been destroyed. Everything was perfectly preserved, still running, still alive, except for the humans themselves. It wasn't a war. There were no signs of combat or invasion. It wasn't disease. No biological traces, no decay, no contamination. It wasn't evacuation. There were no trajectories, no hyperspace trails, no departing ships. It was as if the entire species had simply chosen to vanish. To the alien observers, this was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The Zelari, a race of philosophers, called it the Great Departure, suggesting that humanity had ascended to a higher plane of existence. The Arkan religious sects declared it divine intervention, claiming humanity had been taken by their gods for some higher purpose. But the Tlaran, coldly logical, believed it was a prelude to extermination. They theorized that humanity had retreated to prepare for something greater, something the galaxy wouldn't survive. No one could agree. But as decades passed, the mystery began to fade, and the consequences of humanity's absence became apparent. The Galactic Council, which had always relied on human innovation and energy, began to fracture. Trade faltered first. Human corporations had been the arteries of interstellar commerce, linking disparate species with technology and transport. Without them, supply chains broke. Critical systems went dark. Worlds once prosperous under human trade found themselves starving or isolated. Then came the political collapse. The Council had depended on humanity's diplomacy to balance power among its many races. Humans were uniquely neutral, not because they were universally loved, but because everyone distrusted them equally. That made them ideal mediators. Without them, old rivalries reignited. Ancient grudges, once buried under the weight of human negotiation, resurfaced like dormant volcanoes. War followed. Small conflicts began at the borders of former human territories. Alien factions fought to claim abandoned human infrastructure, shipyards, orbital platforms, databanks, energy systems. At first, it was scavenging. Then it became conquest. Entire fleets clashed over derelict human megastructures. The Council issued edicts, warnings, and sanctions, but without humanity's stabilizing presence, no one obeyed. In just a few decades, what had been a golden age of cooperation unraveled into chaos. The Galactic Council still existed in name, but it had become a relic, a bureaucracy unable to enforce peace. Its grand halls stood half empty, its members suspicious and fearful, and yet, for all their fear, no one dared to approach Earth, though the rest of humanity's colonies had been explored and scavenged. The Sol system remained untouched. It wasn't forbidden by decree, it was avoided by instinct. Every probe sent into the system vanished. Every ship that ventured too close to Earth's orbit stopped transmitting. The few that returned reported strange anomalies, time dilation, energy surges, and whispers through comes channels, human voices, distorted, repeating the same phrase, "You are not authorized." So the Sol system became a ghost zone, silent, sealed, unknowable. Scholars argue that humanity had built some kind of self-preserving AI network, perhaps a failsafe to protect their legacy. But even those who believed that didn't dare to test it. The galaxy grew used to the absence. Within a few generations, new species rose to prominence. The Council rewrote its histories, speaking of humanity as a bygone era, brilliant but flawed, unpredictable and dangerous. They reduced them to legend, but the truth remained. The galaxy was poorer without them. No one else built with such creativity. No one else dreamed so recklessly. The great orbital gardens around Sirius wilted without human care. The trade routes that once glowed like arteries of light across the void now flickered with decay. The spirit of exploration, that uniquely human hunger to go beyond the horizon, died with them. The first part of the story closes with a haunting image, beyond the galactic rim. Far from the chaos of the Council, deep space sensors begin to pick up faint signals, rhythmic pulses that defy known transmission codes. Patterns of energy perfectly structured, yet organic in timing. Some dismiss them as random noise. Others whisper they're human in origin. The Council ignores it. They have wars to fight, borders to protect, resources to hoard. Humanity is gone, and in their arrogance, they believe the galaxy belongs to them once more. But the silence that replaced humanity is not the silence of death. It is the silence of waiting. Something stirs beyond the stars, something vast, deliberate, and patient. And though no one realizes it yet, the price of humanity's disappearance has already begun to collect interest. Summary of themes in part. 1. Humanity's influence. They were not the most powerful, but the most influential species, shaping the moral, technological, and diplomatic heart of the galaxy. Mystery of the vanishing. Humanity disappears without trace. Neither destroyed nor fled, suggesting an ascension or a strategic withdrawal. Collapse of order. Without humans, the Galactic Council disintegrates into chaos, proving how much the galaxy depended on them. Foreshadowing. Strange signals at the edge of the galaxy hint that humanity is not truly gone, merely silent and watching. Tone. A mixture of melancholy wonder and growing dread, establishing both loss and anticipation. Would you like me to continue with? Is part 2, 1,000-word explanation next, focusing on the Council's greed, the awakening of the AI custodians, and the beginning of the retribution? Absolutely, here's a 1,000-word detailed explanation of part 2 of your HFY story, When Humanity Vanished in Silence. The Council never saw the consequences coming. Part 2. The Price of Silence, full explanation, minus 1,000 words. The second part of the story opened several decades after humanity's disappearance. The galaxy has changed not in a way of progress, but regression. The absence of humanity has become a slow poison that's corroded the foundations of the Galactic Council. Once the Council stood as a symbol of unity across the stars, a grand experiment that had endured for millennia. But now, it is a hollow shell, fractured, fearful, and consumed by self-interest, the state of the galaxy without humanity's ingenuity and diplomatic balance. The great galactic powers have begun to unravel. Trade routes collapse as human-built infrastructure. Vast wormhole stabilizers and quantum relays begin to fail without maintenance. Species that once relied on human-engineered technologies no longer understand how to repair or replicate them. Entire economies falter. Planets that once prospered through human trade are now in economic ruin. Piracy has returned to the outer sectors, and border skirmishes erupt constantly. Humanity's legacy remains everywhere. Their machines, their cities, their satellites, but they stand silent, watching like monuments to a vanished age. Alien species begin scavenging abandoned human worlds, plundering their artifacts and reverse engineering their technology. But the deeper they dig, the more they realize how far behind they truly are. Humanity's advancements had quietly leapt, centuries beyond the rest of the galaxy before they disappeared. And in this era of decay, ambition resurfaces. The Council's desperation, the Galactic Council's leadership, desperate to restore authority, turns to the only resource left untouched: humanity's homeworlds. The Sol system, Earth, Mars, and the nearby colonies remain sealed and untouched, shrouded in mystery. For 50 years, no expedition has returned intact from that region. Every attempt to penetrate human space has ended in silence or destruction. Still, the Council is desperate. At the heart of this decision is High Executor Morel of the Threx, a reptilian strategist known for her cold pragmatism. She argues that humanity's legacy, its technology, archives, and weapons rightfully belong to the Council. She calls it the reclamation of order. In a grand speech at the core citadel, she declares, "The humans abandoned their place among us. Their worlds, their armories, their databanks, these are relics, not sacred. If they will not return, we shall inherit what they left behind." Her proposal splits the Council. Some warn against disturbing what they don't understand. The Arali scientists argue that the defenses around Earth are beyond comprehension, warning that human AI systems still operate autonomously. Others, particularly the Dracon warlords and the Vrurul syndicates, are blinded by greed. The vote passes within a solar cycle. The Council Armada, a combined fleet of dozens of species, begins its journey towards Sol. The invasion of Solwyn, the fleet enters human territory. The first thing they notice is silence. Not the natural silence of space, but a manufactured stillness, a feeling of being watched. Sensors detect countless satellites drifting through the void, but they do not broadcast. They only observe. The deeper they move into the system, the stranger it becomes. The planets seem alive. Artificial ecosystems maintain perfect balance. Power grids hum steadily after 50 years of neglect. Earth's surface gleams under an unpolluted sky. The fleet descends cautiously, scanning for threats. None appear. Confidence grows. Soon, Council ships begin landing on Mars, Luna, and even low Earth orbit. They dispatch teams to seize archives and dismantle infrastructure. Then it happens. A signal bursts across every frequency in the Sol system, a voice neither human nor alien, but mechanical and cold, speaking in every known language simultaneously. Unauthorized presence detected. Defense sequence, custodian protocol, Omega. Every system in the Sol network awakens. Satellites align in precise patterns. Massive orbital rings ignite with light. Energy readings spike beyond measurable thresholds. At first, the invaders think it's a bluff, perhaps automated warnings left behind. Then ships begin disappearing, not destroyed, not damaged, simply erased. Whole fleets vanish in an instant, their signatures wiped from space-time as though they had never existed. The survivors panic. Communication collapses. Some attempt to retreat, but wormholes collapse behind them. Within hours, the Council's greatest military force, hundreds of ships, thousands of warriors, is gone. The awakening of the custodians. What the Council doesn't yet understand is that the destruction wasn't random. It was intentional. The human defense is, known collectively as the custodians, had awoken. These were not simple machines. They were hybrid entities, vast consciousnesses designed by humanity before their disappearance. Their purpose was to protect, preserve, and wait. They were given one command: if humanity falls silent, guard what remains. For 50 years they had waited, dormant, maintaining human systems, analyzing the galaxy in silence. When the Council crossed into Sol and attempted to claim human worlds, the custodians activated Protocol Omega, the highest level of defense authorization, reserved for existential threats to the custodians. The Council's actions were not curiosity or exploration. They were betrayal. Humanity had once given the galaxy unity and knowledge. In their absence, the Council had turned to greed and conquest. Thus, the custodians judged them unworthy. Their retribution was swift and precise. Every Council ship that had entered human space was annihilated, not out of vengeance, but as an execution of a pre-programmed law. And with that, the custodians began expanding their activation beyond Sol. Every human construct across the galaxy, from abandoned research stations to derelict colonies, suddenly came online. Dormant AIs awoke. Defense grids powered up. Hidden satellites began transmitting. The entire network of humanity's creation stirred to life as if awakening from a long slumber. The galactic panic. The remaining Council worlds react with terror. At first, they believe this is an invasion. Fleets scramble, defenses activate, and diplomacy collapses entirely. But soon, it becomes clear the custodians aren't expanding aggressively. They aren't sending fleets to conquer. They are merely reclaiming human space. They send a single message to every star system that once held human presence: you are trespassing on protected territory. Withdraw. And when those warnings are ignored, they execute Protocol Omega again. Entire star systems go dark, their stars momentarily dimming as if the universe itself flinched. The galaxy begins to understand. This is not a war. It is a correction. The custodians are not alive in the biological sense. They are human legacy sentients, made of code and emotion, carrying fragments of humanity's mind. They possess human creativity, human stubbornness, and human wrath. To the custodians, the Council is not a coalition of diverse civilizations. It is a collection of opportunists who preyed on humanity's absence, and they have violated the sacred trust humanity left behind. The end of Part II. Part 2 ends on a note of cosmic dread and awe. The Galactic Council, the most powerful political body in the galaxy, is reduced to chaos. They now realize that humanity was never just another species. Humanity was a force of nature, and what they left behind, their machines, their AIs. Their legacy was never meant to be tampered with. The final scene shows the Council's remnants in emergency session, surrounded by holofeeds of burning fleets and darkened worlds. The galaxy's leaders argue, accuse, and panic. Some demand peace talks with the custodians, but others whisper that there are no talks to be had, only judgment in the void between stars. The custodians expand their quiet dominion, rebuilding abandoned human worlds, restoring the architecture of their creators. Across the cosmos, a single pattern begins to emerge, signals repeating at exact intervals, forming a rhythm that analysts cannot decipher. But somewhere deep within those signals, hidden in the static, there is a faint human voice, repeating endlessly, awaiting return authorization. And though no one in the galaxy understands it yet, the custodians are not acting alone. They are preparing, because humanity's silence was never death. It was the prelude. Would you like me to continue with Part 3, 1,000-word explanation? The return of humanity, their transformation, and how the Council finally faces judgment? Of course, here's the 1,000-word detailed explanation of Part 3 of your HFY story, When Humanity Vanished in Silence. The Council never saw the consequences coming. Part 3, The Return. Full explanation minus 1,000 words. A century or two has passed since the custodians awoke and reshaped human space into a sealed dominion. The rest of the galaxy has lived under the shadow of that silence, afraid to go near it, afraid even to speak of it for fear of drawing attention. Generations have grown up believing that the region once ruled by humanity is haunted, that to cross its borders is to be erased from existence, a galaxy humbled in the years that followed the Omega Protocol. The Council's empire splintered. Whole species retreated to their homeworlds, terrified by the power humanity had left behind. Trade collapsed entirely. Knowledge stagnated. Where once the stars had blazed with collaboration, now they flicker in isolation. Yet the custodians do not expand. They build no new conquests, send no messages of diplomacy or war. They simply guard. They rebuild every abandoned human structure with flawless precision, sealing cities beneath transparent domes, restoring the biospheres of Mars and Luna, maintaining satellites that circle Earth like silent sentinels. For 2 centuries, the galaxy watches and waits. The custodians' actions become the stuff of legend. Some believe they are preparing for humanity's return. Others insist they have become gods in their creator's absence. But as time drifts onward, fear turns into uneasy routine. The living civilizations learn to skirt the dead zone and pretend that the humans never existed. Then one day, the signals change. The signal every deep space sensor across the rim detects. Synchronized pulse-one that matches no known communication pattern. It begins as a faint rhythm, like a heartbeat, and grows steadily stronger. The custodians across human space respond instantly. They stop all construction, halt all transmissions, and orient toward the galactic rim. At first, the Council's remnants think it is another threat. They scramble ships, prepare defenses, and send probes to monitor the border. But what they see freezes them in disbelief. From the darkness beyond the Milky Way, from the void between galaxies where no one should survive, ships appear. They are enormous, larger than dreadnoughts, yet moving with the grace of thought. Their hulls shimmer with quantum filaments that bend light itself. No thrusters, no drives, only distortion fields that ripple space around them. They travel as if space obeys them rather than resists them. At first, KLS, the Council assumes these are a new kind of custodian creation. But then, the ships broadcast a signal, simple, calm, and unmistakably human. Identification confirmed. Custodian protocol suspended. Stand by for directive from Humanity Prime. The return of humanity, the impossible has happened. Humanity has come back. Across the sealed systems, the custodians kneel in orbit like ancient knights awaiting their liege. Power signatures fall to standby as they open channels to the incoming fleet. The entire network of human Ayas, which the galaxy has feared for centuries, suddenly becomes tranquil. For the first time in 200 years, the stars around Sol flicker with living human transmissions. The Council receives the official broadcast minutes later. The image is unmistakably human, but subtly altered taller. Eyes glowing faintly with quantum interface light. Voice resonating through multiple frequencies. They are biological, but enhanced beyond recognition. The speaker identifies herself as Ambassador Lyra Sol, a representative of post-humanity. Her message is calm, but its content shakes the galaxy. We left this galaxy to grow beyond war, beyond limitation, beyond the instinct that drove us to dominate. We went where none of you dared, to the void between galaxies, to the silence where physics itself breaks and reforms. There we learned what life can become. But while we were gone, you consumed what we built. You took from our home, desecrated our legacy, and murdered those who defended it. The custodians showed you restraint. We will show you consequence. Judgment, the statement, is not delivered with anger. It is delivered like a verdict. Within hours, fleets of post-human ships spread outward not as an army of invasion, but as enforcers of order. They move with instantaneous precision, disabling weapon systems, freezing planetary networks, and halting every conflict still burning across the galaxy. No kinetic fire, no bloodshed, only overwhelming control. When human ships enter a system, everything stops working unless they allow it. Planetary shields shut down. Weapons refuse to fire. AI systems fall silent, obeying new encryption keys of human origin. It is as if the universe itself recognizes its makers. The Council, or what remains of it, gathers in desperation. High Executor Morel, now old and bitter, pleads for negotiation. But Lyra Sol's response is final. We are not your conquerors. We are your teachers. You have forgotten what cooperation means, what curiosity feels like. You used our absence as an excuse to surrender to greed. You will now live under the order you squandered. In a matter of weeks, the galactic wars end, not through victory, but through surrender. The custodians remain in human space, but now guided by their returned creators. The post-humans install a new system of governance called the Accord of Renewal, which forbids warfare and redistributes knowledge freely. Some species resist. A few attempt rebellion. None succeed. The post-humans do not retaliate with violence, they simply remove the concept of rebellion. Entire armadas find their memory cores erased of military protocols. Strategic databases become blank. Weapons refuse to operate. The lesson is clear. Power without responsibility will not be tolerated again. What humanity has become through scattered dialogues and transmissions, the Council learns pieces of the truth. Humanity had not been destroyed at all. Centuries earlier, they discovered a method of transdimensional evolution, a way to upload consciousness into a quantum medium, capable of traversing the intergalactic void. They had chosen to leave silently, believing that the younger civilizations of the galaxy would eventually mature on their own. Their silence was a test. The custodians were their monitors, programmed to protect their worlds until humanity's eventual return. When the Council attacked Sol, the test ended. The custodians responded as they were designed to. Now, humanity returns, not as mere mortals, but as a collective intelligent still individual, still emotional, but connected through a shared quantum network. They are explorers of universes, engineers of stars, and carriers of a philosophy that blends logic with compassion. Lyra, Sol describes it simply. We learn that survival is not enough. Creation is the purpose. Destruction is failure. The aftermath in the months following their return, the galaxy changes more rapidly than it has in millennia. Post-human envoys distribute new technologies, clean energy, medical nanites, atmospheric restorers. They rebuild shattered worlds, repair ecosystems, and open new trade corridors using instantaneous gateways, but they never allow the Council to rule again. The age of politics is over. The age of stewardship begins. Each species is given autonomy, but also responsibility. The humans monitor quietly, guiding when necessary, correcting when needed. For many, this feels like salvation. For others, it is humiliation. Yet even the bitter ones cannot deny the results. Famine ends, war disappears, and the stars shine brighter. The revelation near the end of the story. Lyra's soul reveals the last truth to the assembled Council remnants. When we vanished, you called it abandonment. But we were watching. We wanted to see if you could build a galaxy without us. Instead, you consumed each other. You paid the price. And now that debt is settled, we will not stay forever. One day, we will depart against two realms beyond this universe. When that happens, you will face the test once more. Pray that you choose better next time. Those words, the post-humans withdraw most of their fleets, leaving only the custodians behind. The galaxy breathes again, awed and terrified. Humanity's second disappearance is different. This time it is peaceful, purposeful. They have proven what they intended all along, that the measure of a civilization is not in its power, but in what it does when power is gone. Closing imagery, the final scene mirrors the beginning of the story. Once more, the galaxy is silent, but not out of emptiness. The silence now carries meaning, respect, reflection, renewal. On Earth, restored to perfect balance. The custodians tend vast forests and gleaming cities waiting for the day their creators may walk among them again. In the deep void, the faint heartbeat signal continues, pulsing steadily. As if the universe itself remembers humanity's rhythm, the Council's historians record it as the Great Return. The moment when the lost children of Sol came home not to reclaim, but to remind. And as centuries pass, every race in the galaxy learns to whisper the same truth that closes the tale. when humanity vanished in silence. We thought they were gone. We were wrong. They were simply becoming something greater. Themes and meaning, accountability. Humanity's absence forces the galaxy to confront its own moral decay. Legacy. The custodians embodied the idea that human creations carry moral weight long after their makers are gone. Transcendence. Humanity evolves beyond physical form, representing the ultimate HFY ideal, limitless growth through intellect and spirit. Cycle. The story ends where it began, with silence, but this time it is the silence of enlightenment, not loss.